You open Instagram, you scroll for 3 minutes, you put your phone down, and somehow feel worse than before. Now imagine someone who just doesn't do that. No Instagram, no TikTok, no Twitter, nothing. You probably think they're missing out. Maybe they're antisocial. Maybe they're behind the times. But here's the thing, and this is what actually shocked me when I looked into it. These people aren't struggling. Most of them are calmer, more focused, and honestly, a lot happier than the average person glued to their feed. So the real question is, what do they know that most of us don't? Today, we're gonna find out. Let's clear something up right away. People who avoid social media aren't tech-hating hermits living in a cabin somewhere. Most of them use smartphones, they watch YouTube, they text, they work online. They just made one deliberate choice to opt out of the social comparison machine. And that's really what social media is when you strip it all back. It's a place where everyone is performing, showing you their highlight reel while you're watching from the audience in your pajamas. Psychologists actually have a name for what happens when we do this constantly. It's called social comparison theory, and research has shown that the more we compare ourselves to others, the worse we feel about our own lives. Now here's what's interesting. The people who avoid social media, they didn't read research papers. They didn't attend psychology conferences. They just felt something was off, and they listened to that feeling. That's the first thing that separates them from most people. They trust their own experience over the pull of the platform. Think about the last time you picked up your phone, not because you wanted to, but because you felt like you had to. Maybe it was FOMO, maybe you were bored, maybe you just reflexively unlocked your screen without even thinking about it. That's not a personality flaw, that's literally by design. Social media platforms are engineered to create compulsive behavior. The infinite scroll, the variable reward of likes and comments, the notifications that pull you back in at exactly the right moment. It's not that different from a slot machine, and the people who designed these apps know it. Now here's what happens in your brain during all of this. Every time you check for likes, your brain releases a tiny hit of dopamine, and every time the number is lower than you hoped or someone else got more, there's a quiet little crash. Do that 50 times a day, and you've put your nervous system through a roller coaster before lunch. People who avoid social media aren't immune to this. They just recognize the pattern, and they stepped off the ride. And once you step off, something genuinely surprising happens. Studies on social media detox are really consistent on a few things. Within the first week of quitting, most people report feeling anxious, restless, like they're missing something. That's withdrawal, real, actual withdrawal, similar to what happens when you cut out sugar or caffeine. But here's where it gets interesting.
By week 2, something shifts. People start noticing that their attention span is longer. They can actually sit with a book, a conversation, or a task without feeling the pull to grab their phone. Their sleep improves because they're not scrolling until midnight and overstimulating their brain before bed. Their self-image gets quieter, not necessarily more confident right away, but quieter, less noise, less of that background hum of, am I doing enough? Am I far enough ahead? Why does their life look better than mine? That background noise is exhausting. Most of us are so used to it we don't even notice it anymore. People who avoid social media permanently, they've just permanently turned down that noise. And what fills the space instead is kind of beautiful. Boredom at first, then creativity, then real conversations, then actual presence. Here's the psychology behind this that most people completely miss. Social media doesn't just waste your time, it slowly shapes how you see yourself. When you're constantly consuming other people's lives, your brain starts unconsciously measuring your worth against theirs. And because social media shows only the best moments, your comparison point is completely distorted. You're comparing your real life, your messy, complicated, ordinary real life, to someone else's edited highlight reel. And after years of this, many people can't even figure out what they actually want anymore. They want what looks good, what gets engagement, what fits the aesthetic. People who step away from social media go through something that sounds small but is actually massive. They start wanting things for themselves again, not for an audience. They rediscover opinions they actually hold, not ones they formed because they saw 30 people agree with something online. They rediscover hobbies they dropped because those hobbies didn't look interesting on a feed. They stop performing and start living. Psychologists call this autonomy, the sense that your choices are genuinely yours. And it turns out, autonomy is one of the biggest predictors of life satisfaction. The people avoiding social media, they've got it in abundance. Now you might be thinking, okay, but what do they actually do with all that time? And this is where it gets really practical. They read more, not because reading is noble, because when your attention isn't constantly fragmented, a book actually becomes enjoyable again. They invest in fewer, deeper relationships. Instead of staying loosely connected with 300 people online, they're genuinely close with 10. And research consistently shows that the quality of your relationships matters far more than the quantity. They're more present at work, at meals, with their kids, with themselves. Because presence isn't something you have to practice, it's what naturally happens when you're not mentally halfway inside a phone screen. They also tend to have a clearer sense of direction. When you're not being flooded with what everyone else is doing, it's actually a lot easier to figure out what you want to do. That's not a personality type. That's a direct result of protecting your mental space. Here's what I don't want you to take away from this, that you have to quit cold turkey or it doesn't count, because that's not how sustainable change works. The psychology behind social media avoidance isn't really about social media. It's about intentionality. It's about deciding what you let into your mind and how much. You can start incredibly small. Pick one app, just one, and delete it for 7 days. Not forever, 7 days. Pay attention to what changes. Notice when you reach for your phone out of habit. Notice what you fill the time with instead. Notice whether the anxiety goes up first and then comes down. That noticing, that's you taking back your awareness. And that's actually the hardest part. Most people never do it because they're waiting to feel ready. But the people who've actually made this shift, they didn't wait to feel ready. They just started, even when it felt uncomfortable. So let's bring this home. People who avoid social media aren't behind. They're not weird. They're not missing out. They've just quietly figured out something most of us are still running from, that constant comparison is expensive, that designing your life for an audience is exhausting, and that when you protect your attention, your sense of self gets a lot cleaner and a lot stronger. The psychology is real, the benefits are documented, and you don't need anyone's permission to start. So, here's your one step for today. Just one. Put your phone in a drawer for 2 hours tonight. No social media, no scrolling, just 2 hours. And pay attention to what comes up, the restlessness, the quiet, and eventually, maybe, a little bit of peace. If this hits something for you, drop a comment below. Tell me, what do you think you do with the time you spend scrolling? I'm genuinely curious. And if you're on this journey of building a more intentional life, stick around. That's exactly what this channel is about. I'll see you in the next one.